Hello, everybody. Today we've got the final deep dive for the 2024 election. It's going to be the U.S. Senate race in Ohio. This seat, currently held by the Democrats, could have the closest margin, and it's going to be a viable pickup opportunity for the Republicans if they're looking to solidify their control of the Senate. So let's get into the background. The incumbent U.S. Senator here is Democrat Sherrod Brown, and he's running for his fourth term. Prior to his time with the Senate, Brown spent some time with the U.S. House, as well as some other elected offices in Ohio. So Brown has been around a long time. In his last win in 2018, he won by more than 6.5 points. His opponent on the Republican side is Bernie Moreno. Moreno has not held elected office. He was born in Colombia, and his background is in the car dealership business. Now, in addition to these two major party candidates, there's also a libertarian who's going to be on the ballot. Now, let's take a look at what they did in their primaries. Well, for Sherrod Brown, no surprise whatsoever, he was completely unopposed. Without Brown on the ballot, this is very likely to be a flip and a pickup for the Republicans. Now, for Bernie Moreno, he did face a competitive primary. He won by more than expected, and he cleared 50% of the vote. His opponent was Matt Dolan, who was considered more moderate and establishment, and Frank LaRose, who is the current Secretary of State. The deciding factor in that primary might be that Moreno did get the endorsement from Donald Trump, and that state in that race, that's going to carry some weight. Now, if you compare raw primary vote totals from each party, the Republicans had more than twice the amount as the Democrats. I don't think that really means anything. Brown did not even face a competitive primary, but if you're into that kind of thing, then it's clearly a big lead for the GOP. Now let's go down here and see how this race is rated. Well, there's a consensus. All four of the sites, Cook, Decision Desk, Inside Elections, and Larry Sabato, rate this as a toss-up. I agree with that rating. It is a toss-up, but since I don't do toss-ups, my last prediction did have it as a tilt for Brown, the Democrat. My take on this race is that Brown is the only chance Democrats have to hold this seat. And even though Bernie Moreno is not viewed as the strongest candidate for the GOP, it's quite possible that Donald Trump at the top of the ticket is able to pull him over the finish line. I've given Brown the benefit of the doubt up until this point because I think he's much more well-known and he has a connection, especially with working-class voters in this state. Those are the same kinds of voters that Trump does well with. So I wanted to give Moreno time to get his campaign going and get his name ID up. So this seat is completely in the realm of possibility for Moreno to pull off. But there's no chance you can count out Sherrod Brown. He might have just the right kind of appeal to be able to hold this seat one more time for the Dems. If we go down here past the endorsements, we've got the campaign financing. And Sherrod Brown has vastly outraised Bernie Moreno, but Moreno does have a lot of money behind him, and some of that money is his own. He is very wealthy. He's able to self-finance. That could be another thing that Sherrod Brown is able to use against him. Now let's take a look at how some of these counties have moved at the top of the ticket on a presidential level. The most populous county is going to be Franklin, and that has the capital of Columbus. And over the last couple of elections, the county has gotten bluer. Trump went down very slightly, but Biden went up 5 points. If you're looking for a suburban county, it's going to be north in Delaware. This is another county that has moved toward the left. Last time, Trump went down a couple of points. Biden went up a significant 7. So that could be a potential future issue for the Trump brand. Now, we can also take a look at Cuyahoga County, where Cleveland is. And that county only got 1 point bluer from 16. Meanwhile, Trump actually went up 2 points. So that is one where it actually moved in the direction of Trump. West of there in Lorain County, that's one of those classic Rust Belt counties that went heavy for Obama back in 12. He won it by a very comfortable 15 points. Then in 2016, Hillary only won it by 0.1%. And 4 years ago, Trump was able to flip it and he carried it by almost 2.5. Now, a couple of counties in the Northeast, in the Mahoning Valley, we've got Trumbull and Mahoning County. This is where Youngstown is. And there's a lot of blue-collar, working-class union voters here. And you can see Obama in 12 won both of these counties with over 60% support. So there was absolutely no competition for these types of voters back then. But the Trump brand has proven effective here. Trumbull County flipped and voted for Trump by 6 points in 16. Then in 20, it supported him by double digits. In Mahoning, Hillary was able to hold it in 16, but Trump finally flipped it last time by about 2 points. This is where Sherrod Brown is hoping to be able to flip this county back, and he's also hoping to do pretty well in this region in general. Now, most of these rural counties were already very, very red even back in 2012, but again, once Trump got on the ballot in 16, then they went right off a cliff. Now Trump is easily clearing 60%, even 70% in many of these counties. A few of them he even gets into the 80s. So this state overall used to be a big bellwether, especially in the days of Obama. There's a lot of medium-sized blue cities and blue counties here. You've also got Toledo up here in Lucas County, Cincinnati in the southwest in Hamilton County, and Dayton is here in Montgomery County. This is a county that voted for Obama, then Trump, then Biden. And it's definitely going to be one that Sherrod Brown is going to have to win by a decent margin. So once you add up all this blue vote, it is dwarfed by that ruby red rural Trump vote. That's how Trump has been able to carry the state the past 2 elections. Bernie Moreno is going to have to really ride those coattails, and it's unclear if he's going to be able to do it. so we can't look at every county, but we can move on to Sherrod Brown's last win in 2018. Now, keep in mind that was a blue wave election. Now, you could go back to 2012, the last time Sherrod Brown was on the ballot, also during a presidential year. But given that was 12 years ago, I'm going to just focus on the more recent data. So Brown won that pretty comfortably. It was by almost a 7-point margin. And as you can see in the Northeast and the Mahoning Valley, Sherrod Brown won Trumbull by almost 16 points, and he cleared 60% in Mahoning. So that's exactly where Brown is looking to run it up. He's trying to remind those voters that he's still one of them. Now, I think on economic issues that he's going to have a great case to do so. The cultural issues, I think, are going to be where he's going to have a disconnect. That's where Bernie Moreno is hoping to make up some ground. The rest of these red counties are just not as red as they were in the presidential election. In Franklin County, Brown polled in almost 69%. Jim Renacci was at 31. But in 2020, Biden was under 65, while Trump was over 33. So it's pretty much across the board that Brown did better. Now, theoretically, Brown could do a lot worse than this margin and still be able to hold on to this seat. Now, the most recent Senate election here occurred in the midterms in 2022. That one we saw almost the reverse margin. J.D. Vance took down Tim Ryan 53-47. And in that one, Vance was even able to win both Trumbull and Mahoning counties. And similar to Brown, Bernie Moreno does not have to do as well as Vance did to be able to flip that seat. I think whoever wins it, it's likely to be by a narrow margin. Now let's take a quick look at their official campaign websites. Here it is for Sherrod Brown if you want to see who he is, where he stands on the issues, or what he's up to. There's even a banner at the top to motivate you to donate. It says that a poll shows that Sherrod Brown is down 2 points to his opponent. And here it is for Bernie Moreno. You might not be familiar with him, so you could see what he's up to, what his endorsements are, or donate to his campaign. Now, how about any debates? Well, it looks like there hasn't been any, and we're probably not going to get any. It doesn't seem like there's any great reason why it's not going to happen. It sounds like they both wanted to, but they're not able to work out the right details. Who knows what the real reason is, but I think it's a complete disappointment if we don't get at least one debate out of this race. But we can move on and take a look at the current polling. Right now, it's very tight across all the aggregates. Sherrod Brown is ahead by just 1 point. And Brown led every poll up until about a month or two ago. To me, that made sense because a lot of people didn't really know who Bernie Moreno was, and Sherrod Brown is the battle-tested incumbent. But as we've seen over the past few weeks, as people start paying more and more attention and more money flows into this race, Bernie Moreno has made up some ground. He's even leading in a couple of recent polls. But let's see how accurate the polls were back in 2018 in Brown's last win. So Brown was at 53.5, Renacci was at 46.5. There are a couple of outliers here, but for the most part, the polling for Brown was not too far off. The polling for Renacci maybe underestimated him only by a couple of points or so. But given that it was almost a 7-point margin, it was not nearly as competitive as it's going to be in this election. And the last thing we can do is take a look at the markets. First, we've got Poly Market. And here, Bernie Moreno is favored to win with 63%. Sherrod Brown is at 38. And for this one, we could also get on Predicted. Here, the Republican chance is at 65 cents. The Democrat is at 40. And if you look at the past 3 months, it's gone back and forth. But most recently, Moreno has opened up a bit of a lead. So what is the conclusion for this pivotal Senate race? Well, I think the key question in this one is how much crossover vote is there going to be? If Trump is going to win this state easily by 5 points, maybe even 10 or 12, would there really be enough of those voters willing to vote for Trump and then cross over and support Brown in the Senate? I think he would get some, but 10+% does seem like it would be too much. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I think the trick here for Moreno is hoping that Trump does win the state by at least 10 points. That could be enough to drag Moreno over the line, maybe even by a couple of points. If Trump ends up winning the state only by 6 or 7, that could be enough for Sherrod Brown to hang on by a couple of points. But it's also possible there's just way less crossover vote than we think. Maybe Trump wins the state by 10, Bernie Moreno somehow surges and wins the state by 9. That seems pretty unlikely given Brown's track record and connection with the state. I would expect him to run at least 5 points ahead of Harris. But this is an industrial Midwest state that's undergone a political transformation over the past decade and a half. But it's not Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. It is a lot redder. It's moved to the right quicker and has become mostly a red state at this point. The story of immigration, especially the Haitian immigrants, it's another key factor in this race. And for Moreno, he could come out and say that he actually is an immigrant himself. But again, Brown is going to have some more populist economic issues that I think would benefit his campaign more than Moreno. So I understand why these markets have moved in favor of Moreno. I think we need to see what's going to happen here in the final week. But that's a look at the most high-profile U.S. Senate race in 2024. So let me know in the comments. Do you think Sherrod Brown is going to be able to hold on in a squeaker? Or do you think Bernie Moreno is going to run close to Trump and he's going to be able to flip this seat? What kind of margins are you going to be looking for in some of these counties? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy it if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.